are certain things we just expect to be true in video games. Things like red barrels explode, being nice to everybody tends to lead to the good ending, and if a boss has a giant glowing eyeball, you should probably shoot it. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, and the video games on this list delighted in ripping the rug out from under you when you expected things to go one way and they flipped the narrative on its head. We made up a list of our favorite cases of this video game phenomenon earlier this year, but you guys had plenty more suggestions of times games have switched up on you, so we're digging into those. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 times video games totally broke your trust. Commenter edition. Number 10, Storage Locker of the Demon, Doom 3. Doom 3 has loads of storage lockers stocked with supplies to help you take on all the denizens of hell. In order to get your hands on all the ammo, guns, and gear they have to offer, you'll need to track down the relevant security access codes for each locker. That is, except for one particular locker, aptly bearing the ID 666. If you didn't see something coming here, that might be on you. To be fair though, in the entire game, the dozens of lockers have held nothing but gear and useful bits and pieces, so it's not entirely on you if the post-it note bearing the code right underneath the keypad and the open with caution label didn't set off warning bells. Open this one though and you'll likely get the fright of your life as a demon launches out at you from the darkness. Once your heart rate has returned to acceptable levels, you can check out the strewn people bits inside the container and be about your business. Number 9, Crystal Bugs, Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age. The humble crystal bug, the ultimate troll and wild betrayal of your trust in what can be a party-decimating end result if you aren't prepared. These enemies can be found in the Still Shrine of Miriam, Sochin Cave Palace, and the Nabrius Deadlands, and come in 3 colors, orange, blue, and green. The trust that's been broken here is that these particular baddies look just like save crystals, the things you've been taught to seek out and breathe a sigh of relief upon finding, because you know all your hard work up to that point will be safely stored for your return at any point. But no, lo and behold, get close enough to any of these baddies and boom, you're in combat. Not just any combat too, it can be legitimately challenging, especially if you're underleveled. There are only 3 in the game, so it's a real shock when you come across them, but you'll certainly never be able to approach another save crystal for the rest of the game without at least an ounce of skepticism. Quite apart from the sheer embarrassment of being killed by a save point. That sucks. Number 8, the Sign-Loving Subrosion, The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons. Breaking stuff and the Legend of Zelda games really do go hand in hand. Break a pot, break all the pots. Chop all the grass, chop the signs, you get the picture. Link is a bit of a bull in a china shop when he's let loose. So there's an expectation that since so many things in Zelda games are destructible, there's really no harm in hiya-ing your way through everything in sight, right? Well, sort of. Everything is just dandy until you run into the sign-loving Subrosion who lives in Subrosia, a subterranean lava level existing just underneath Holodrum. This guy loves signs, like really loves them. He keeps track of how many signs you break in the game and asks you how you could be so cruel to break signs around town. Once you break 100 or more signs, the happy-go-lucky sign man loses it with you and tells you to prepare for what's to come. At this point, the startup screen will flash up, implying you've lost your save file and the game has either restarted or your progress has been erased. Of course, this is only a troll, and the sign-loving Subrosion will give you the sign ring to remind you of what a horrible person you've been to all the signs, but you will have definitely been scared for a minute there. Number 7, No Safe Spaces, Dead Space 2. There are plenty of games that play with the idea and expectation of safe spaces, especially horror games. On our last list, we called out the workbench ambush in The Last of Us and Nemesis moseying into your save room in Resident Evil 3 Remake as examples of games totally messing with you. This is all the more rude when you think everything's going to be fine because an earlier game in the series established it that way. Enter Dead Space 2. Now we all understand by the second game in the series that the world of Dead Space is relentlessly horrifying, wildly unsafe, and riddled with dark rooms and jump scare loving necromorphs. That said, we've been led to believe that at least its elevators are safe. Sure, a necromorph might try and get in and get sliced up by the door, but they can't actually get you in there. Right? Well, sure, right up until the bit in Dead Space 2 where you run in from the church and a necromorph drops in on you from the ceiling. Cue what is probably the most frantic session of shooting and stomping that you'll have done in the game so far, and you'll never look at elevators quite the same way again. Number 6, Sister Frida's Last Stand, Dark Souls 3 Ashes of Ariandel. When you play a From Software game, you're always ready for anything. Chests that want to chew your hand off, skull-faced birds of prey dropping from the sky, you name it. But what avid fans had come to understand after a number of entries was that bosses would max out at 2 phases. Well, that's until they took on Sister Frieda. You'll deplete Sister Frieda's health bar, watch her fall to the floor and bleed out, which massively pisses off Father Ariandel, at which point you'll need to fight the both of them, now engulfed in flame. Being Dark Souls 3, this is no cakewalk, but with enough careful planning and pitch-perfect execution, you'll make it to the end and the game will give you a Titanite slab, a rare crafting ingredient. Then when you think you're all done because you got the loot and everything, the music stops and you can wander around again, Black Flame Frieda rises from the dead to mess your shit up. This was an incredible shock, as this was the first time in the series that a boss battle had progressed to a 3rd stage. It is a beautiful and cinematic fight, but it sure did break the trust of FromSoft fans who thought they knew what to expect from a boss fight. Number 5. Idle Screen Ghosts, Fatal Frame 2. Fatal Frame 2 isn't the first game in the series to feature this nasty little trust-breaking feature, but it is as cheeky and trolly in Fatal Frame 2 as ever. Leave your controller alone for too long, and this iconic horror title will fade in horrific ghostly visages across your screen. Because God forbid you take a few seconds away from the relentless ghost-riddled terror to grab a snack or take a phone call. While some games on this list and our last one broke your trust by turning things like save rooms into scary locations, this one breaks all the rules of video games and basically just gives you like a scary ghosty screensaver. Keep playing, see scary ghosts. Stop playing, see scary ghosts. Either way, Fatal Frame ensures it keeps its place as a seminal horror franchise, and you stay primed for terror at every moment. Number 4. Turn off the console, Metal Gear Solid 2. Up there with moments that defined your childhood and absolutely freaked you out, we've got the Colonel losing his crap in Metal Gear Solid 2. Raiden will suddenly receive a transmission telling him to, quote, turn the game console off right now, which is absolutely not something you expect a video game character to say, and somehow completely terrifying. Terrifying for you, no doubt very funny for iconic developer Hideo Kojima. Of course, turning off the console will just throw you back to the last checkpoint and repeat the conversation when you reach the trigger point. He tells you not to worry and it's only a game, but you need to cut the power. His voice then gets more distorted and he tells you he had a supernatural experience. It's all very unsettling, particularly the part where the game tells you that you've been playing it for too long, and let's just say chances are they were probably on the money, so that's especially freaky. Number 3, you're on the clock, Deus Ex Human Revolution. Right near the beginning of Deus Ex Human Revolution, in the very first mission in fact, you're tasked with saving hostages. What you couldn't have known is that an invisible timer has kicked off, and if you don't get underway in time, all the hostages will die. If, for example, you spend too much time exploring the first building before getting on the helicopter, you won't get there in time to save them. Of course, there's no way for you to know that this is an actual time limit in the game, since of course so often RPGs will give you fake time limits where it seems like everything needs to be done straight away, but it absolutely doesn't. You'll never think of all RPG time limits as artificial again after this one, especially if you manage to get the hostages killed. Oops. Number 2, fake knockout sign, Cuphead. In a case of it being a positive to be chronically online, you wouldn't have been fooled by one of brutal platformer Cuphead's most brutal betrayals of your trust, a fake knockout sign. That blessed knockout sign means all your tense minutes of hard-earned evasion, attacks, and platforming are finally over. If you do decide to celebrate early though and assume the knockout sign, which looks different from normal, is the actual knockout sign, you might find yourself actually wiped out by the new villain, a snail who's crawled out from under the baddie's hat. There's nothing quite as painful as being trolled by the sign too late for you to recover, and seeing you made it right to the end only to be taken out in the final moments. We trusted you, knockout sign, for shame. Number 1, a totally real Jedi Holocron, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. In any RPG, you're going to want to buy all the important things that any random NPC has to sell you, especially when you're on the outskirts of a ruined Jedi enclave that you already know salvagers picked clean, and one such salvager offers you a Jedi Holocron. Not only that, but one of your companions has told you to try and track down holocrons and he'll help you in deciphering them. Of course, said salvager won't part with it for nothing, so he tells you to fork over 1,000 credits and it's yours. You do so, and upon further inspection, find out the holocron is fake. What is there to do from this point? Absolutely nothing. The guy tells you it's your bad for buying it, no take backsies, and he won't give you your money back. So you stand there with your lightsaber in your hand and 1,000 credits out of pocket, feeling like a dummy. Thanks a lot, video game. We trusted you. Kreia almost definitely laughed at you for it too. That's the end of our list, but do let us know down in the comments section if you can think of any other times that video games have broken your trust, and we'll all commiserate. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm @JessMcDonnell, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.